I hope I don't have to sit here today and clear my throat half a dozen times. The wind has shifted. We had a cold front come through, and a lot of the smoke from the wildfire that's been burning nearby for the last couple of weeks seems to be off in a different direction, but I still have that little tickle in the throat that's been following me around the last couple of weeks. I was at the scene last weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, so I guess I breathed in enough to last me for another week. The fire is pretty well contained, and it looks as if right now it's just taking care of the hot spots, which I guess is a good thing. Hey, I wanted to make a couple of quick comments about a story that made some national news out of Idaho here this week, and that is you had several Christians who were at a praise. Well, it was, they were singing psalms, and they were arrested. Not all of them, but I believe three were arrested by police in Moscow, Idaho, leading even one of the national pundits, Tucker Carlson, to ask if it was Moscow, Idaho, or Moscow, Soviet Union. And then he was followed later in the evening by his coworker, Laura Ingram, asking Moscow, Idaho, or Moscow, Russia. You get the drift, obviously. But I think we're wrong if we're blaming police officers in this particular case. First of all, the same people who will tell you that police officers need to be given permission to shoot back at a BLM or Antifa rally when someone's throwing a Molotov cocktail at them are the same people who are angry if police arrest someone from our side. Seems to me there's a little bit of bias in there, and if you stood back and looked at it, you got to realize police officers are pretty much dealing with rules of engagement that are set by their local governments. So the problem here isn't the police officers. Nobody got bashed over the head in Moscow the other day. In fact, they all went along quite peacefully. In one of the videos that I happened to see, the music teacher's wife hands a police officer her purse so she can turn around and fold her arms behind her back so they can put the tie around her wrists and lead her away. So these people went quite willingly. They were not argumentative. They did not resist arrest. And likely in a community of 25,000 people, they know most of the police officers, vice versa. Some of those very same police officers may go to some of the same churches. And so I'm not putting it on them. The idea is that people think that they should be constitutional scholars while they're doing their jobs. And their job is, look, diffuse this situation as quickly as possible, and then we'll sort it out later. If you want to change, then you've got to change government. The problem is in a place like Moscow, Idaho, which is home to the University of Idaho. U of I was a land-grant university. The place is filled with liberals. Why? Well, they work there. They teach there. They're in administration there. They vote as well, and they voted in a city council that would be, in a red state, a different type of red, the same type of red we talked about back in the days of the Soviet Union. That is, it's a socialist government. So if you want change, there's only a couple of ways you're going to get it. You have to elect people who are better at looking at the Constitution. I would think, though, that if you can't do that, and that's a possibility there because of just the voter rolls favoring the liberals, maybe the Justice Department has to come in. The U.S. Attorney's Office has to come in and apply the 14th Amendment, which essentially says, if I recall my teachings on this, that the federal Constitution applies to everyone throughout the states. You see, there was a time when we first had a federal Constitution and it was adopted, and we were told that government was going to not be involved with endorsing a state religion, but the states themselves could do that. The reason that doesn't happen anymore is because of that broadness of that 14th Amendment. And if you're stopping people from engaging in freedom of religion, then I think you could bring to bear some pressure on the government of Moscow, Idaho. Secondly, nobody likes in-city government's negative publicity. Here in Twin Falls, a couple of years back, I was at lunch with our city manager and our then mayor, and they were telling me that they fear that bad publicity means companies that would otherwise move here won't be coming. And if you've got people dragged away because they're singing in public, they're praising God in public, if I don't know that I necessarily buy what the local guys told me, but if that's the case, then it's going to harm the image of Moscow, Idaho just as much. And so local government has to be concerned about that. And then the governor came along and yesterday put out a statement saying he really has nothing to do with it. He has not put in place a statewide mandate on mask wearing. We're grateful for that. We should tell our lordship that we're very, very grateful and pay him homage. But the thing is, he says, well, it's a city decision and the legislature really controls that. You know, you got to make a statement sometimes, Governor, and take a stand. You know, you got to show that you've got some stones because right now a lot of people think that you're just riding a wave of some sorts, and they're not quite sure what wave that is and why you're riding it. It just does not fit with what you would call the Zeitgeist. Is that how they pronounce that? Of Idaho. That is, it's not culturally, it does not fit. It doesn't matter what they say over at your local newspaper. They're a different breed of cat in those editorial offices, but it's not what regular people feel. And you also have legislators who are now coming forward, some very powerful ones too, and saying, this has got to come to a stop. And if we can get more of their voices, perhaps that's going to happen. I was reading some stats the other day on coronavirus. Sanjay Gupta, who is a doctor employed by Clinton News Network, CNN, says young people should be very concerned about getting this because 840 have died under the age of 30 nationwide. But when you look at that figure, it turns out of all of the actual cases in America, which have only been 7 million out of 330, the 800 some people who died under the age of 30 constitute 0.01%. Not even a tenth of a percent, like 1/100th of a percent. It's pretty dang low. And we've also heard the stats that say 94% of these people who died had other conditions. Many of them were going to die from those conditions likely within a few months anyway. It just got hastened because of the other illness. A cold may have done the same thing. So I think we've all been fed up with this. We cannot continue to live like this. It cannot go on indefinitely. That's where courts have to come in as well, and they have to tell people like our governor, yes, you can declare an emergency if a dam breaks, because it's going to take a few days to clean up the mess, get everybody in there to clean up the mess, and get the sightseers out of the way. But you cannot declare that emergency for years on end. And if we've already dragged on for more than half a year, maybe it's time. Somebody at some, just put it this way, somebody on some judicial bench has to come forward and say, hey, I know this Constitution, and this is enough. As far as the case goes in Ohio, quick reference there. A friend of mine looked this up, and do you know that a mandate does carry the weight of law? So the woman who was not wearing the mask, when they asked her to leave, she really did not have any legal recourse. Again, this is where, though, if judges came in and said these were all null and void, then there would not be a mandate at this stage of the game. And clearly, she didn't seem to be sitting anywhere near anyone. I do understand that part of the argument. But when she started swearing at the police officer and resisting arrest, that's when she put herself, if she had just said, okay, I'll leave, and maybe decided to challenge it later on, we wouldn't be in this situation. And once again, if you don't like what he did, then change out the school board. He was the school resource officer. You change the school board, you put in place people who are like-minded, and you won't have to be dealing with this. It comes back to you in all of this. Okay? All right, hey, gotta run. Hope you have a great weekend. And if you like our videos, click on the subscribe button. And you can also leave comments in the section below.